Hi brick lovers, Tom here, and I wanted to share with you a few of my favourite techniques for compact stud reversal. So this is all about building in different directions. So you can see I've got my, this was a fun build that my daughter challenged me to make of the Oxo Tower, which is a famous landmark in London. And here we've got studs going in all different directions to make this X shape. We've got arches facing upwards, arches facing downwards. And so I'll show you a bit about how that's done at the end of this video. But I'm going to show you 10 different techniques for reversing stud direction in what's known as SNOT, studs not on top. Here's the first one. So these ones on this regular tan coloured base plate are going to show you compact techniques, but the techniques mean that you end up not actually aligned to the system of studs. So you'll end up half a plate or a quarter plate out from some of the other things you're building around if you follow these techniques, but sometimes that can be okay. This is probably the most compact technique that I know of. So what we've got here is we're making use of these brilliant little tiles with a bar sticking up from them, and then a 1x1 plate that has a hole in it, and the open stud fits right over that bar just neatly like that. And that means, and you'll see on all of these examples, we've got a yellow plate with the studs facing downwards and the orange plate with the studs facing upwards. So that's really cool. We can get into a tight little space there with studs going in different directions. Very similar technique here, but now we're using these amazing, I think these are supposed to be pneumatic pipes. So if I get that apart, can you see there? So they're like a T-bar shape, and they fit into these 1x2 rounded plates that also have open studs. So we're getting a really compact stud reversal. You can fit something on top of those studs there, but as you can probably tell, this is not in line with the top of the brick there. We're about half a plate out, I think. So again, on the example, we've got orange plate, studs facing upwards, yellow plate, studs facing downwards, but you can sort of see how that doesn't really line up perfectly with the rest of our build. This makes use of a couple of different special parts which actually have studs facing in two directions. These are cool. I think these are supposed to be weapon hilts, so lots of those in Ninjago sets. And then very specialised piece, I don't even know what to call it, but it's a kind of L-shaped weapon hilt. And again, it has studs on both sides, so if you can get hold of those, I think these were in the Ninjago City Markets, or Ninjago City Gardens set. So if you can get hold of them, they do a really good job of compactly, and this time we're getting the studs facing outwards. Remember on some of those previous examples, we have the studs in different directions, but actually what we're really getting is anti-studs facing up and down. On these examples, we're getting studs, which is really cool, so we can build off of those. This is number 4, and this one, we're actually going to be able to get in line, build in line. So you can see here, this yellow plate and orange plate, the studs on the yellow plate down, orange plate up, but they're actually perfectly in line with each other. Can you see that? So this is a really nice technique if we want to stay in the system. And this makes use of those beautiful tiles with bars again, just sitting in a regular clip plate. And they go in upside down, meaning you've got anti-studs that way and studs this way. So a really nice technique, very, very small space needed for that. Here's one that needs a little bit more space, but gets us a really compact version of studs facing up and down, a bit like those weapon hilts, but now we're actually perfectly in line. So what we've got here is, we're making use of headlamp bricks, holding, I don't even know what this plate is called, a modified 1x1 plate with a kind of pair of studs on the outside of it facing sideways. So if you put those together, this will fit into, I've got it fitted here into a 2x3 brick space, but we've actually got studs in the middle, yellow down, orange up. Really cool technique. And then a similar one that's making more use of SNOT bricks. You get these wonderful ones with studs on both sides. So this is a 1x2 brick that has studs on both sides of it as well as on the top. And then if we use a headlamp brick with that, this lines up really nicely. You can fit a 2x2 brick or plate on top of that. And as you can see here, we've got in a very small space, orange studs up, yellow studs down. We're on to technique number 7, and this uses just a pair of clips facing in different directions on these 1x1 bricks that have a vertical bar sticking out the side. So if you've got some of those in your collection and you've got some clips, you can have 2 facing downwards, 2 facing upwards, and they take up the same vertical height as a regular brick, but now we've got studs on the orange upwards, studs on the yellow facing downwards. Technique number 8, again we're using bars and clips, but this time it's the other way around. If you've got any of these bricks that have bars through the middle of them, can you see that? I've unclipped one side. That one's facing downwards and it's just fitted into these 1x1 bricks that have a clip coming out the side. So if we make use of that, we've actually got the height of a brick here, but the cool thing now is we can have 2 sets of studs facing upwards. We've got these orange plates that are facing upwards and 2 facing downwards. We've got anti-studs and studs facing downwards. So sometimes that can be really useful if you're wanting to build things off in both directions but have a very, very firm attachment in a small space that's only taking up a 2x2 brick space. Number 9, the penultimate one, we're nearly there. This makes use of ball and socket joints. So again, we've got the footprint of a 3x2 brick, but in that space, we're managing to get a ball and socket joint. And all we've done is rotate the ball and socket joint. Instead of being this way up, we've got it upside down, and we're putting plates in to sort of hold it in position so it's nice and rigid. And the good thing about that then is we've got, again, in the space of a 1x1 brick, we've got studs facing up and studs facing down, not anti-studs. So that can be quite a good option, again, if you've got the space for a 3x2 profile. And then our final technique, a little bit of an unorthodox one. This makes use of these 1x2 plates with open studs that we saw earlier, and then some short bars. So I think these are bars that are 2 in length, 2 bricks worth in length. So can you see there, they're inserted in the middle. If I actually pull it completely apart, you'll be able to see how that's held together. So we've got these, and we're making use of the stop ring to kind of hold that in position. So it needs quite a few of these, but in a very compact space, we've now got studs up and down. And so you can see off of that, within, I think, what's that, a brick and a plate, we've got studs facing up and studs facing down, but a much slimmer profile all around. And sometimes that can be a really nice option, especially if you're using other parts that have maybe bars and you want to keep things very tight and focused. This is a really nice technique for that. So I promised you I'd show you how that works in situ. So just using the example of this OXO tower again, let's have a quick look at how some of this is done. Already, if I show you on the side there, that's actually the clip and bar technique we saw earlier. I'll break the whole model in half, pop out the center. But you can see here, what we're doing is, we want 2 opposing arches. They're the same piece, a 4x1 arch brick, one facing upwards and one facing downwards. So the downward facing one, we put a tile on the bottom so that it sits nicely against other things. And then you can see at the back, that's being held in place with a pair of those tiles with the bar sticking out the top, one of my favourite techniques. And so now we can just turn those clips upside down, and what do you know, we've created an inverted arch profile, which is really useful when we want to create something that looks like a complete circle there. And again, if we break apart and have a look inside here at what's going on, so we've got one part of our X shape. We've got some SNOT bricks with studs on 2 different sides. So we've got the little slopes coming out there. But again, if I break this apart, you'll see it's exactly the same technique to get a jumper plate facing down with a slope in the middle. So that's 2 of those tiles with a bar sticking out the top, and then the clips facing downwards. So you can see how in a very, very small, tight space, we're managing to get studs going off in all 4 different directions by using these really, really cool stud reversal techniques. I hope this inspires you in some of your own builds, and I'll say cheerio for now and keep on bricking.